Thank you, Mr. Chair. To my dear friend and colleague from Oklahoma, I did support the president's budget when it came forward. It was smaller, but the president also had a lot of cost savings in it that Congress refused to do by retiring a lot of legacy equipment. So if we're not going to retire it, then we start raising it. So it is something that we have to grapple with together. And I know we share the same spirit in solving problems. Red Hill, this committee put $1 billion into Red Hill over the next 3 years. And if we were ever to build a large storage facility, as we're looking at doing in other places, and as you said, some of this is classified, so we're not going to get into where it is, we would have never placed it on top of an aquifer, which is where Red Hill's on top of the drinking supply for Honolulu. So that was then, this is now, and I'm going to be out there next week looking at the way we're moving forward. And I appreciate the Navy's due diligence in making sure that what we drain there, we drain safely by doing the needed repair work to do that. And I know the citizens of Hawaii and the citizens of the United States, the residents of Honolulu and Hawaii, appreciate your due diligence not to cause any more harm. Mr. Secretary, one of the top challenges that you said is building and maintaining strategic partnerships. One of the places I hope to go in the coming months is going to be the Philippines. So is there anything you would like to highlight regarding this regional partnership with the Philippines, and any updates you can provide regarding the expansion of the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement?
Madam Vice Chair, I'm extremely grateful to the Philippines for the strength of the relationship that they've built, particularly over the last several months with the new administration working closely together with us in every possible way to strengthen our national security and our mutual interests in the Indo-Pacific. From the day I became Secretary of the Navy, in fact, my first visit by an ambassador was from the ambassador of the Philippines, because I recognize that the strength of this relationship is critical to our national security efforts in the Pacific. And we've seen many different results from that occurring, to the point today where we're now committing to actually conducting at-sea exercises together. You may have also learned here that very recently there's a commitment on behalf of the national security, our national security team, to actually create a relationship between Japan, the Philippines, and the United States as well, too, for our mutual interests. And so I'm very excited about what the future holds in terms of the relationship between our two nations. And as you know, they've also recently, the Filipino administration recently agreed to 4 additional sites, basing sites throughout the country as well, too. So I think there's a lot of good that's going to continue to come from this very important relationship with this very important ally.
Thank you, Mr. Womack.
I want to pick up a little bit on that theme for the two service chiefs. Great football programs are in spring training right now. They're getting ready. They're in the weight room. They're doing the things before the lights come on in the season. And of course, our job is to make sure that the schedule doesn't unfold, that we have a proper deterrence to avoid conflict. But should we get into the real varsity competition, it is my strong belief that preparation is important, interoperability is important with our allies and partners, and that campaigning and exercises, big joint force exercises, are essential. Are we affording our exercise programs, like REMPAC and others, are we doing enough? Are we committing the proper resources to ensure that these campaign exercises are beneficial? And so I'll lead with, first of all, with General Berger. Your thoughts, sir?
I think Admiral Aquilino's accelerated what his predecessor did by not just counting the number of things that they're doing in the Pacific, as you point out, but stacking them on top of each other, sequencing them, bringing the right countries into the exercises so that they're meaningful, not just doing what we've always done. I think over time, the services and the combatant commanders, him especially, using the exercises to send a message. They provide training and readiness for us, no question. They also send a powerful message. They always have, but I think it is more meaningful now in the environment that we're in. I'm comfortable, yes, that we're headed in the right direction. I think if Admiral Aquilino was sitting here, he'd want more money for more exercises. We would want more funding to send more troops to train in those exercises. Lastly, I'll just add, they provide us a great real-life laboratory to test stuff out or to demonstrate stuff. And we're doing that thoughtfully, both us and the CNO, in major exercises like you point out, RIMPAC, but they're a great opportunity when the world is watching to demonstrate something, to show something.
Yeah, very well stated by the Commandant. I'll add a couple of things. First, we can never train enough. And so the exercises that we're doing, one of the great things that we've seen evolve over time is the fact that we're setting the bar higher and higher for our allies and partners, and they want it high. They want to be able to operate and integrate and be interoperable at a much higher level than they have in the past because of the buildup they see from the Chinese. The other thing that I would mention is that when we talk about great powers, people often talk about spheres of influence. But in the Pacific, as the Commandant talked about stacking exercises, we actually have spheres of integration. Nobody sits the bench. Everybody plays, from small countries in Micronesia to Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Japan, Korea, the Philippines, and so on. And so there's a place for everybody to come in, like-minded nations, to observe and to reinforce international law and the fact that the maritime commons and the skies above them are open to everybody. So we're heading in the right direction, sir.
Mr. Kilmer.
Thanks, Chairman. I'm going to try to hit two more topics with you. One's a tough one. I know the Navy's continued to struggle with mental health and suicide issues. Unfortunately, we saw 3 suicides during the year-and-a-half-long shipyard period that the USS Teddy Roosevelt had. The George Washington also suffered an alarming series of suicides. We've heard pretty consistent concerns in our neck of the woods just regarding how hard these shipyard periods can be for our sailors, and I just want to make sure we're doing all we can. Maybe quickly, can you give me some sense of how the Navy's working to improve quality of life issues and mental health issues, and what do you need from us if there are things that Congress can do to step up and make sure that we're taking care of those who are taking care of our country?
Well, thank you, Congressman. There is no more important mission than quality of life for our sailors, the very life itself. And we have taken a very close look, not just anecdotally, but actually taking a look at the data on how many suicides occur, why they're occurring, where they're occurring, and trying to get good information so that we can make good decisions based on those. Without question, and there are many reasons why someone commits suicide, obviously. It could be work-driven stress, stress factors associated with that. It could be financial in nature. It could be relationship-driven. And so it takes a holistic approach to try to address all these issues at one time. But one of the things we have discovered, obviously, is that life is stressful in shipyards. And we, as a department, probably haven't done enough over the course of decades to try to improve the quality of life in a shipyard. I myself actually spent an entire year building a ship in a shipyard. I know how it can be. So this year, with regards to the George Washington in particular, we've invested $258 million that we're investing to improve the quality of life in shipyards. And that includes basically moving the crew off the ships earlier than normal to address that issue, building and modernizing our berthing barges, some of which are 50 years old and deep need of repair. So there's a lot of investment in berthing barges. We're looking at building parking garages, for example, at HII in Norfolk, Virginia, so that sailors don't have to walk extreme distances to get to their cars in parking lots that are far away from the ship itself. We're looking at multi-use facilities to support recreation, for example. We're looking at other places as well, too, the quality of life of their barracks, for example, which needs much improvement as well, too. So it's a holistic approach that we're taking to this, and it needs to continue. This can't just be a one-off in any way possible, so that we can get to a better place and protect the lives of our sailors, Marines, and their families.
Thank you. And if there are things that we can do from this subcommittee, I think we're eager to do it.
Could I add something, sir? Oblige me just a bit of time. The most common mental health diagnosis that we see from sailors is adjustment disorder. And so one of the things that we're focused on is how do we separate life stress from mental illness, right? And not all of that requires a doctor. And so, as an example, investment in chaplains. We have one now on every single destroyer. In our big deck amphibious ships, on our aircraft carriers, we have resilience teams. So we have psychiatrists, psychologists, we have psychiatric nurse practitioners, we have licensed clinical social workers, and we send our corpsmen through school. The chairman, the secretary has pushed us to maximize the throughput for our corpsmen to be trained as behavioral health technicians. They do that triaging at the tactical edge to help determine whether or not somebody is just having a bad day and they're sad, or whether they're sick, and to get them the right kind of care. So not always is it the right solution set to say, we need to get this sailor to a hospital. What we're doing in many cases is we're overloading our hospitals with cases that, again, are diagnosed as adjustment disorders. That's not at all to minimize somebody's condition, but we're trying to make smart choices here. And as you all know, the connectedness at the lowest levels, that, you know, we learn a lot from the other services, the Marine Corps, the Army, how they're doing it. And so I would say, sir, in terms of helping us, I think funding for a lot of those embedded mental health enablers that may not necessarily be doctors per se, to continue that funding is helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time, Mr.
Chairman,
Mr. Cole.
Thank you very much. I have two questions. I'll pose them both quick. One's very parochial. Admiral, as I said, I'd like to just get your viewpoint on the transition from the E6 platforms to C-130Js, how we're doing, what the timeline is. Are you satisfied with the pace of change in terms of E6 wing at Tinker? The second one is actually for any of you that care to answer it. As my friend Mr. Womack mentioned, under the chairman, a lot of us were out in Western Pacific, and I've been there a lot of times, been to Japan particularly a lot of times over the years, and usually the conversation's always about trade. You know, it's like beef imports and tariffs and regulation. Every conversation we had, partly because of who we were, but look, they wanted to talk to us about security. And to be in Japan and hear about them doubling their commitment of GDP defense in a 5-year period from 1% to 2% when you're the third largest economy in the world, that matters. That's a pretty big deal. To go to Taiwan and see them, okay, conscription used to be 4 months, it's a year now, and we want to buy everything you're willing to sell us, and can you possibly get it here tomorrow? And then to go to South Korea and see them sending their president to Japan, you know, given the historic tensions between those two countries, to talk about how they can cooperate better. I mean, at one sense, it was really, refreshing to see that degree of commitment. And frankly, you want to be a popular American, just go to the Western Pacific. Boy, they want you there. But it was also concerning in terms of how quickly, how concerned they are about the Chinese menace. So I just want you all to reflect and give us how quickly are our allies getting to where they need us? How good a job are we doing helping them to get to where they need to be and expanding our capability? Because, again, you always rely on yourself first and foremost, and I have a lot of respect for what the Navy and the Marines in particular do in the Western Pacific, but it's sure nice to have friends. And I think that's something China doesn't have a lot of, and we do have a lot of. And so how we prepare and use them and bring them in, I think is really important. So yield back. If you can first the things and then just whatever you want to tell us about our relationships.
Well, let me just say very quickly that I think you're absolutely correct in the sense that, a nation's economic security depends on its national security. And all of these countries in the Western Pacific, they want to have the United States as an ally. And we want to further that relationship both economically and from a national security perspective. And even the relationship with China has to be very carefully managed, obvious, for all the right reasons. But it's obvious that and the Department of the Navy is at the pointy end of that spear, both the Marine Corps and the Navy. So let me allow perhaps the general comment first and then go over to the CNO?
I think the window you described for us to step in there is now, without a doubt. They need a partner, they're looking for a partner, they want the U.S., they favor the U.S. We have to move into that window. We have to be the best friend that they have now. I think Japan, Philippines, Australia, South Korea, even the influence we're having in Thailand, Vietnam, all in a good trend and direction. We can't back off of that. It's not on autopilot. We also have to meet them where they are. I mean, I have lived in Japan and deployed there for 40 years. The countries in Asia, sometimes we go in with a one-size-fits-all, this is how you do business, and try to force them to do it, and that doesn't work. We have to listen, understand where they are, meet them there, and then get to the point where you all describe where we're completely interoperable. This is that window now.
I just add, take a look at our foreign military sales cases. Take a look at the South Koreans and the Japanese with Aegis systems. The Japanese just fired SM-6, our most advanced missiles, off of our own missile range at really challenging targets. P-8s. Look at the potential Tomahawks, the potential submarine deal with Australia. There's a lot of good stuff happening out there with a high level of trust. We're leveraging their companies with respect to quantum computing and AI. There's a lot of goodness back and forth on EA-6Bs. So the Secretary just signed the contract this week for 3 test aircraft. These are C-130Js. Marine Corps is flying them now. These are mature, proven capability. We have 2 in the FIDP in 27, another 3 in the FIDP in 27, another 6 in 28. I think we're moving at the right pace, sir, in order to get those aircraft online. And we just have a RFP out to industry right now for the VLF comms capability that we're going to integrate in. So we're committed to it, and hopefully we can maintain that the funding levels to bring it through.
Thank you. Mr. Ruppersberger.
I want to move to the Naval Academy. And you and I have had conversations about the Naval Academy. First thing I want to say, I think all of our institutions are some of the best in the world. And when you see someone going in the first year and when they graduate, they're different. It's one of the reasons we are still the most powerful country in the world, and that leadership is there. But every area has issues, and in my role, I've tried to focus on, as chair of the board there, infrastructure. The infrastructure is falling apart, and whenever you're about to fix it, it's cut, or it doesn't pass muster. We have been able to, from an infrastructure point of view, we have the new cyber building, which was built to deal with the issue of the flooding and the water. And that is very unique, and I think it's going to help us. And the fact that it's right down the street from NSA, it really gives us an edge, I think. This last year, we were able to get about $32 million, I believe, for flooding. And I think what we're going to do with that program is it'll help us for at least the next 50 to 60 years if we can keep it in. But it's not sexy, it's not exciting, it's not going to war with China, Russia, all the things that we do, which we have to do. We're preparing for that, the freedom and liberties that we have. But we have to really take the infrastructure of the Naval Academy seriously. Bancroft Hall is falling apart. I mean, you have gymnasiums there where water is coming through, and we just have to do it. It's something that's important from an infrastructure point of view. And the good news that our board has agreed with me that we're going to keep trying to do that. We're dealing on this committee with all sorts of issues out there, but when it comes to our institutions, we don't want to slip there at all, and we're not slipping. And I think our institutions are some of the best in the world. Now, I will say that for the last I've been on that board for a long time, I've had about maybe 12 bets, Army, Navy, and we won 10. And then all of a sudden, I get a call from General Milley saying, "Hey, we're coming to Baltimore, and I want to sit with you." Well, I said, "Well, I'm not going to bet. I just fine, General." Army won, and they won a second time. Whew, took the heat off of me, thank goodness. But my one question here is, I need your commitment, and I've really talked to you about it, Mr. Secretary. We have got to talk about these issues and make sure we fund the infrastructure.
Congressman, you're absolutely right, and I am committed to this venture, not just at the Naval Academy, but at all our professional military education institutions. I often say that I expect all my generals and admirals to know how to fight. I need them to learn how to think strategically, as they have in the past and will continue to do so in the future. And that investment is made at the Naval Academy, at the Navy Postgraduate School, at the Navy War College, at the Marine War College, and at the Navy Community College as well, too, for our enlisted force. And you're right, the infrastructure at all of those institutions needs a lot of help. And so I'm committed to making the necessary investments as well, too, because it's an investment in our warriors and our future warriors that are leading our Navy and Marine Corps, both as officers and as enlisted as well, too, through the Naval Community College as well.
The Naval Academy, unique institution, but we have all this water around us, and it's flooding.
Yes, sir. And thanks for your leadership in fixing the seawall. And I know there's a lot more to come. And I have already invested some, moving some funds around in 22 with your permission, and 23, and we have more investments coming in 24 for FSRM and MILCON as well, too. It's going to take a long time, but you've got to start the process, and it's going to begin now.
We're going to close, and Jimmy Panetta would want me to mention Monterey, so I'll
Yes,
just
sir.
bring that up. Gentlelady.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This has been a great hearing. I look forward to answers to submitted questions that will be given to you. And to you, General, and to the Admiral, wherever your career takes you in the future, I hope it is filled with great happiness and good health for you and your family. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. If I could just add one thing, ma'am, which is critically important, I think, to our national security here, ensuring that, and I know this is a House Appropriations Committee meeting, but ensuring that we have our senior general officers and flag officers in place is absolutely critical to our fight with regards to deterring threats from China and Russia. It's about leadership of the force and looking at these issues that we face, as we've discussed today, live war on NATO's border, aggressive China, Iranian-backed attacks on U.S. forces and belligerent North Korea. We have 5 3-stars today, Mr. Chairman, that are due to rotate eminently, including our top Navy commander in the Middle East, for example. Over the coming months, we have 70 3-star and 4-star rotations, Cybercom, Spacecom, Northcom, the service chiefs themselves for the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Easily hundreds of military families are going to be impacted, delaying school transitions for kids and spousal employment, and much more. I would ask for the Senate's support and your encouragement here in the House as well, too, to support ensuring that these nominations of the Department's top military officers are not delayed any further.
Well, if I had any influence over the Senate, I would do a lot of things.
Yes,
but,
sir.
I think, as you know, peripheral issues sometimes get involved, and some of the things have, it's unfortunate. Before we conclude, I want to thank our witnesses for your testimony today. Obviously, the subcommittee members are welcome to submit questions for the record, and I would ask the witnesses to respond to those questions at a reasonable time. And again, I want to thank both of you guys for your service, the Secretary for his service. I think we've all known each other for, especially the General and the Admiral, we've known each other for a lot of years, and I appreciate your service. Talk to you soon. We're adjourned.